everybody, welcome to another Author Show board game review. This week we're looking at 12 Realms, a very unique game that deserves a very unique review. See, 12 Realms is basically almost two games in one. You have the very basic rules, which is a family-oriented, very family gaming experience where you can play with the younger kids ages 5 and up. But the only unfortunate thing is if I showed you how to play the game that way, you're going to miss the point and you're going to think it's a childish game. Now, if I'd show you the more kitchen sink approach where I throw in all the different modules and all the different challenges, you're going to be pretty darn disappointed because you're going to think that while this game on the surface looks pretty darn whimsical, almost in a way kind of remind you of Fantastica, the actual game underneath that veneer is very challenging and very difficult and very hard to beat. So I'm going to do something a little bit different with this video series. I'm actually going to do 2 instructional videos for the game. The first one, I'm going to concentrate on the family-friendly version of 12 Realms, show you how to play the basic game and show you how it can be a great family game for the younger kids. And then with the second video, I'm going to throw in all the modules that come with the basic set. Not going to include any of the expansions, just the basic set itself, just to show you how much more challenging this game can be and how that veneer of being a very whimsical game is masking a very challenging game underneath. After that, I'm going to do my usual video playthrough showing the gameplay of the game. But when I do that gameplay, I'm going to throw everything in there, including the kitchen sink, to show you just how challenging this game can be. In 12 Realms, the players are heroes taken from fairy tales, taken from myth, taken from legends, working together to try to defeat a Dark Lord who's doing his best to destroy all the realms. These Dark Lords don't work alone. Every single realm has their own specific Dark Lord who is also working together to bring about the fall of all these wonderful realms. Not only do you have to contest with multiple Dark Overlords, you also have to contest with their minions and the fact that every one of these Dark Overlords is completely immune to your effects to destroy them unless you can find all the artifacts of power, bring them together with one hero, and fight these evil creatures bent on world domination. Our heroes will have to travel all over the realms working together to try to gather treasures, which will help them buy better equipment to become more well equipped to take care of these evil dark creatures. All while doing their best to keep the populations of these dark invaders low, because as the level of these invaders goes up, the track continues to rise. If the players are unable to defeat the final Dark Overlord for each round before the track reaches 20, all of our players have lost. Can our heroes work together using their talents wisely, trying to stop the ongoing onslaught of these evil invaders while trying to prevent the realms themselves from being destroyed? That is 12 Realms, the board game. To understand how to play 12 Realms, there's a couple of pretty core concepts you need to understand about the game. First of all, the game is played across different realms, and the amount of realms you're going to play with depends on how many players you're playing. So if you're playing a one-player game, generally you're only going to play with one realm board. If you happen to be playing a two-player game, you're going to play with 2 realms, and each player is going to get a hero to start on the realm board. And if you are curious, yes, the game is called 12 Realms, and there are only 4 realms in the base box, and that's because every single expansion is going to add 4 more realms to the game until the final expansion, which I do believe comes out in May, or at least the Kickstarter for it should start in May, will bring out the last final 4 realms, bringing up to a total of 12 realms, matching the title of the game. Now, every single realm in the game of 12 Realms is broken down in various sections, which also happen to match this die, which is numbered Roman numerically, anywhere from 1 to 6. Which also happens to match 6 of the 7 locations every one of these round boards. You see area 1 matches 1. If I roll a 5, that happens to match area 5. Every round board also does have a section which is going to be the city, and this is very important for 2 very important reasons. 1, the city is where you're going to do all your shopping, and 2, every one of these cities is connected. So if you're playing a 2-realm game, this city and this city are connected. If you're playing a 3-realm game, every one of the cities are connected, and in a 4-realm game, every one of the cities is connected. So it's very important because that does mean that you can actually travel between realms, and not only that, there are special abilities that allow you to do it without traveling to cities, but ignoring special abilities and ignoring special cards you may get in play, just remember that every single one of these cities are connected. If this hero happens to be in this city, and if he wants to do this as an action, he can decide to go from this city to travel to this city and explore a secondary realm. So one very important thing to understand when you're playing 12 Realms, don't think you're locked in your own realm and you can't be really doing anything with the other players interacting with the rest of the game while other players are out there fighting baddies and destroying villains, because you can travel from one realm to another simply by traveling from one city to the next. You also need to understand that every single one of these realm boards has an invasion track that's numbered from 1 all the way to 20, and it is color-coded, and these different color codings are going to matter depending on which difficulty level you decide to play the game on. It's numbered from 1 to 20. You'll notice that the number 7 is in black, and that's only going to matter when you're playing with the advanced rules. You'll notice numbers 16 through 19 are in red, and that's going to matter in every version of the game. And number 20 is also going to matter in every version of the game, because if this track ever gets to 20 on any of the realm boards in play, it doesn't matter if it's this realm board or this realm board or this realm happens to only be at 6, if any realm happens to hit level 20, the Dark Lords have taken over one of the realms and our heroes have lost the game. It's also very important to understand that every one of these realms has a Dark Lord or two that happens to be affiliated with this realm. And actually in the base box set, every single realm has 2 Dark Lords affiliated with it. And it also has invaders that are affiliated with that dark realm. And you can tell exactly which realm each one of these cards is affiliated by simply looking at the symbol in the upper right hand corner, which is going to match a symbol on every one of these realm boards. So if you look at all these Silver Kingdom cards I laid out here, you're going to see they each have a unicorn on a shield symbol, which also happens to match the symbol on this realm board for the Silver Kingdom itself. And then it also happens to also go for the Cherry Blossom land. You'll see that there is a symbol here for the realm that also happens to match the symbol that happens to be on the Dark Lord, and it also happens to match all the symbols on every one of the minions. It also matches the symbol for the treasure cards in that deck, and it also matches the symbols for the artifact cards in that specific deck. And that's actually called affiliation, and affiliation is very important for this game because affiliation is going to help you win this game. Basically, the way you win this game is if you happen to defeat a Dark Lord that is affiliated with the current realm you're currently battling in. You manage to stave off defeat in that one particular realm, but that doesn't save you from all the other realms that happen to still be in play. See, to gain victory in 12 realms, what you need to do is you need to defeat every single Dark Lord that's affiliated with every single realm that you currently have in play before any of these tracks reach level 20. And like I said, I want to emphasize is any one of these tracks, even if it's only a single track out of all the boards you have in play, whether it's a 2-realm or a 4-realm board game, if any of these realm tracks reach level 20, all the heroes have lost. But if you happen to defeat every single Dark Lord affiliated with every single realm that you happen to have in play before any of these tracks reach level 20, our heroes have won the game. Every one of the heroes in 12 realms is made up of a set of talents that they're going to use to explore the realms, to defeat their enemies, and try to become victorious in the game. Every one of these talents can thematically be thought of, such as the feathered wings, which could be your swiftness and your movement, or just how quickly you can react. You have your sword, which represents your ability in combat, your ability to defeat opponents in battles, and also just how tough you are overall. The star represents your ability with magic, just how powerful you are with magic, your ability to cast spells, and how you can use these spells to defeat enemies or overcome obstacles. The book represents your knowledge, how smart you are or how well you know your opponents and the ability to outfox them or outsmart them to try to defeat them. The heart represents your courage or your ability to charm your opponents or charm your obstacles or the courage to overcome your obstacles. The gold coin represents your access to money to do things such as buying off your opponents, telling them that maybe it's a little bit better for them to take the gold and run before you defeat them, or even gold to use to spend in the cities to buy extra things to make yourself more powerful. And finally, the crown, which can be considered your wisdom, your ability to outsmart things in your general knowledge, not quite like the knowledge book, but more of an overall knowledge, because this is actually the only wild card in the game. This symbol right here can replace any symbol except for the money symbol if you ever need one of your talents to overcome something. And if you lack the talent, you can always use the crown as a wild card to replace any one of these other talents for any of your challenges. The key here, though, is the crown can never be used as a wild card for money. That's the only thing it can never be, because nothing beats cold, hard cash in your effort to accomplish your goals. Every single hero in the game is going to start with a set amount of talents depending on which side of the board you decide to choose. Now, you can play with either side of your hero board, and there's no real difference between either side of these hero boards, except for each side will have slightly different talents and slightly different powers. And when I say there's no real difference, I'm trying to imply that there's no real power difference between them. It's not like one side is more powerful than the other. It's more like one side can do things just a little bit differently and has a different set of talents, allowing them to be more efficient in different areas. So when you play the game, you need to figure out exactly which side you want to play, depending on which kind of talents or which kind of special powers you want to bring into the game. After you pick which hero you're going to play in 12 realms, you're going to get some talent tokens that you're going to use to represent when you're expending, or as the game calls it, exploiting your talents to try to overcome some of the obstacles in the game. So you're simply going to look at your board, and you're going to take talent tokens, depending on whatever's imprinted on your board. So if you happen to have knowledge on your board, you have swiftness, you have the crown, and you have the sword, you're basically going to take those tokens, place them on a board, and you're going to know those are the talents you have to use throughout the game at the start. Plus, you're also going to get additional talents by purchasing things in the towns, such as, for example, if you manage to hire the Black Knight, he's going to permanently add extra knowledge to you and extra swordplay as long as you control the Black Knight. If for some reason you lose the Black Knight, either because you burn him for his more powerful ability, or some future expansion comes along that forces you to discard this hero, when he disappears, he's also going to take the talents with him that he gave you while he joined your team. And this goes for all the kind of cars you can purchase in the city. For example, if you happen to hire the Pegasus, or however you want to say, just get the Pegasus to join your team. He's permanently going to give you the ability to have extra magic, which makes sense because the Pegasus is a magical creature. He's also going to give you extra swiftness because you have a flying horse. Obviously, you can travel further with a flying horse. But if you burn his special ability, or somehow you're forced to discard the flying horse, you are going to lose the talents that he happened to give you when he joined your team. When you exploit your talents to overcome various difficulties in the game, you're simply just going to move your talents off this little main talents area of your board to signify that you've used them, and you don't have access to those talents anymore unless some power ability allows you to recycle those talents, and there are abilities that let you do that. But generally, for example, if you want to move, you're going to burn or exploit one movement talent, which will allow you to move to an adjacent area on the current realm board you happen to be on. If you happen to encounter something that requires your knowledge to overcome, you'll simply spend your knowledge to overcome it, whether that gives you a treasure or that helps you to defeat a villain and remove them from the board. You've spent that talent or exploited it for this round, and you're not going to have access to it anymore. Every single talent can only be exploited once per round, and that goes for the talents you happen to start the game with, and it also happens to go for talents that you may gain from hiring extra creatures to join your fight, or extra warriors and heroes that you hire to join your fight. You can continue to use the talents that they happen to give you, exploiting them as you go to get the special abilities for them, but once you use a talent, you can't use it anymore for the rest of the turn, and at the end of every player's turn, all their talents that they've used are going to refresh so they can use them on the following round, but that is at the end of their turn, so they can't keep burning those talents unless they happen to get a special ability that allows them to recycle a certain amount of talents. Now, in 12 realms, there are two different kinds of talents. You have your red talents, which are your permanent talents that as soon as you get them, whether it's because you started with them at the beginning of the game or a card happened to give them to you, you permanently have those abilities as long as they're on your talent board or as long as you happen to have that card. The other kind of talents happen to be the blue talents. Now, blue talents you get through various things such as potions that you're going to find in the cities that you can buy, or other special abilities that your hero personally happens to have, such as Jeanne d'Arc, who happens to have an ability that she can get a temporary blue sword token that she can add to her main talent board. The trick is these blue talents are one-time use only. Now, when you use one of these red talents, you simply move them off the board, and at the end of the round, you're going to get them back. When you use these blue talents, they're one-time use only, and when you use them, you completely remove them from your board, and you lose access to them, unless you find another way to get one of those talents back by doing extra action or something comes along to give you another blue talent. So while talents are one-time use only if they're blue versus the red ones that you keep permanently, the blue ones do have one special advantage over the red talents. You see, some of these Dark Lords have special abilities that when you encounter them, they're going to make you lose a certain amount of talents temporarily. And you don't lose red ones. Remember, I want to emphasize you don't lose red talents. But when you encounter some of these villains, what they're going to do is before the fight even begins, they're going to force you to burn or exploit some of your talents before you can even encounter these dark villains. The nice thing about blue talents is that these dark villains can never force you to exploit blue talents. So if you encounter a dark overlord or villain or any kind of invader of any single kind, if you have any blue talents to exploit, their special abilities can't force you to exploit them before you fight them in a battle. So if you happen to be running into this Dark Lord right here, who's going to require a bit of combat, a little bit of courage, some knowledge, and finally just a little bit of magic to defeat, He can't force you to discard any of your blue tokens before you defeat him. The only thing he can do is force you to exploit or discard some of your red tokens before the fight happens to start. As I mentioned earlier, every single realm is going to have a deck of cards that's affiliated with that specific realm. And this deck of cards is made up of dark overlords, it's made up of invaders, it's made up of treasures, and it's also made up of artifacts. Now don't forget, these artifacts are required to defeat the dark overlord. If you don't get all three artifacts, you can't defeat the dark overlord, so you need to be working to get these artifacts before the end of the game. As I mentioned earlier, every single hero is made up of talents, but every one of these cards in these affiliated decks is going to be made up of vulnerabilities. The Dark Overlord has his own vulnerabilities listed on the bottom of the card and also listed on the affiliated token, which is what you're going to place on the board instead of the card. The token is going to be placed on the realm board to show exactly where on the realm this creature happens to currently be. Same thing for the invaders. You have your invader card plus your invader token that you're going to place on the board to show exactly where in the realm that invader happens to be. Same thing goes for your treasures. They're going to be placed on the board. And your artifacts, which will also be placed on the board to show exactly where in every one of these realms these things happen to be. For every single hero to defeat these dark overlords, to defeat these invaders, to collect these treasures, and to rescue these artifacts, they're going to have to overcome the vulnerabilities of every one of these things depending on what they are. So for example, to defeat this dark overlord, you need to overcome his vulnerabilities of 2 speed, 1 book, and 1 star, or in a thematic sense, you have to be swift twice, you need to have lots of knowledge, and finally, you're going to need just a little bit of magic to defeat this dark overlord. Luckily for this hero, remember that any crown is a wild card which can replace any other talent except for money. So since we don't have access to magic as this hero, we do have access to this crown, which does give us the 4 talents we need, which would allow us to defeat this dark overlord. That is assuming, of course, we happen to have all the artifacts we needed to defeat this dark overlord. To defeat this dwarf, we see that we need either swords for combat ability or we need money to bribe him to pay him off. Of course, what kind of dwarf? Self-respecting dwarf. We're going to take a lot of gold and decide to leave the realms, especially since gold is all dwarves ever really want anyways. So to defeat this dwarf, we could exploit our combat prowess and defeat him. To defeat this dwarf, if we happen to have some gold talent, we could spend our gold talent to go ahead and bribe him to leave. Or if we happen to have some gold laying around, we could also spend that gold to bribe him to leave the realms alone. To recover the treasures, we'll need to exploit the vulnerabilities, which happen to be on the tokens. Now, every single realm is going to have different treasure requirements to recover the treasures. If you happen to be in this realm right here, it requires courage to recover the treasures. Whereas opposed, if you happen to go to the pirate realm, you're going to see that it's going to take combat ability to recover the treasures, basically because you have to fight the pirates who happen to be protecting those treasures. Additionally, every one of these artifacts is going to have different things you're going to have to do to recover these artifacts. Some artifacts will require knowledge to recover, some will require combat, some will require money, or some other things, even magic, to require these things. And again, to overcome the vulnerabilities of these, all you have to do is happen to have the talents that have not been exploited, spend those talents, and go ahead and gain whatever you may gain from exploiting those talents if you have the right talents to overcome the vulnerabilities for the Dark Overlords, the invaders, the treasures, and finally, the artifacts. Make sure you pay close attention to every one of the vulnerabilities on every one of these cards though, because for example, you'll notice the dwarf has the ore symbol on it, which means you can use combat or gold to defeat the dwarves and send them packing away from the realms, whereas opposed to Dark Lord, there is no ore, so you do need 2 swiftness, 1 book, and 1 star to defeat the Dark Overlord who happens to rule over this realm. And while generally most of the invaders only require 1 talent to go ahead and defeat them, there are some invaders who require more than 1 talent to exploit to go ahead and defeat their vulnerabilities. For example, the Valkyrie requires knowledge and combat prowess to defeat, while this Dark Knight, who happens to have 2 swords, requires lots of combat prowess to defeat completely. On top of that, some of these invaders are going to have different groups of abilities you're going to have to exploit to go ahead and defeat them. You can defeat this Red Oni by having lots of combat prowess and using 2 swords, or you can defeat him by having lots of magical ability by exploiting 2 stars to defeat this Red Oni. So be very careful when you're working on defeating these invaders and defeating these Dark Overlords, and watching exactly what you need to defeat them, how much you need to defeat them with, and making sure you have those talents available to exploit, because once they're used up, you can't use them again this turn unless you get a special ability that allows you to reset your talents and use them again. To add even more challenge to the game, the Dark Overlords and the invaders occasionally even happen to have special powers. Now, just before I forget, I want to let you know the way you tell the difference between a Dark Overlord and a standard invader is that every Dark Overlord is going to have a little banner here with this symbol on top, and that lets you know there's a Dark Overlord. In the basic set, every single realm comes with 2 Dark Overlords, and when you're using the basic rules, you're going to pick one of these Dark Overlords that you're going to encounter from the game, and then the other Dark Overlords can be removed so you don't have to deal with them at all. Now again, all of these invaders have the potential, and all these Dark Overlords have the potential to have special abilities that make them a little bit more challenging and a lot harder to defeat. And I don't want to take the time to go over every single one of these abilities because they are all listed on the back of the rulebook for the Dark Overlords and inside the rulebook for all the invaders. And there's about 12 different ones that would really take too much time to overly explain them, especially since they're all plainly listed in the rulebook and you read them and see exactly what they do. I'll just go over a couple of them to give you a general idea of how they work though. For example, this Dark Overlord, he has the ability that before you encounter him, before the fight even starts, the hero encountering this Dark Overlord needs to pick 3 other talents of their choice and exploit those talents before the fight even begins. So that means you're going to have 3 less talents going into the fight versus this guy, and you want to make sure you don't hit any of his vulnerabilities, because if you exploit his vulnerabilities and you don't have those talents left to exploit at the end, you won't even be able to defeat this Dark Overlord. So make sure before you go into a fight with him, you have all these talents that he needs to defeat him, plus some extra talents left over that you can exploit before the fight even begins. Other invaders have special abilities such as the horde power. This rat soldier or this mouse soldier has the horde ability, and that means that when you add this guy to the board, he's going to come on the board and he's going to bring 3 friends with him. So wherever he shows up on the board, he's going to bring 3 friends with him. So anytime you draw this card, that does mean that there's going to be 4 mice added to the board at one single location, 1 for the card, plus 3 more for the extra horde ability that he's going to bring along with him and add to the fight. Then you have creatures such as this sorcerer who happens to have the same power as the Dark Overlord, just at a lesser strength. And then you also have things such as the dwarf who has a power that actually helps you. If you happen to defeat this dwarf, you're going to gain a gold coin for defeating him. And I want to make sure I emphasize this, a gold coin, not a gold talent, and not a gold permanent talent. When you defeat this dwarf, you're going to gain 1 gold coin, and these gold coins are used for buying things when you enter the shops when you visit the town. There's also one more talent I want to cover that sometimes gets confused. You have the horde talent right here, which means that whenever he comes on the board, he's going to bring some friends with him. And then you have the summon talent. Now the horde talent is going to bring friends with him when he arrives on the board. The summon talent is going to randomly summon extra skeletons based on the roll of a die onto the board at the beginning of every single round. So as long as this guy stays in play, he's going to bring more friends every single round out onto the board in various locations to make your life difficult until you manage to defeat him and all of his friends. If there's at least one of these guys left on the board at the start of a round, he's going to start summoning more friends. So remember, summon, he's going to add extra pieces to the board at random locations at the start of the turn. And then horde means they're all going to come on the board at one single time to make your life much more difficult. To play 12 realms, you're going to need to pick heroes. You're also going to have to pick realms that are going to be invaded by these Dark Overlords. Generally, the way they suggest is for every hero in play, you want to have 1 realm in play. Now, if you want to make the game more difficult, you want to have more realms than there are players. If you want to make the game easier, you want more heroes than there are realms. So for an average balance, if you want a 4-player game, you'll want 4 realms. If you want the game to be more difficult, you'd have 3 heroes with 4 realms. And if you want the game a lot easier, you'd have 4 heroes and 3 realms, just as an example. After you've decided exactly which player is going to play which hero, you need to make sure you get the talent tokens for every one of your heroes, place them on your board, and you're also going to want to grab one of the affiliated invasion decks for every single realm that you happen to have in play. Since we have all 4 of our realms in play, that does mean all 4 of our affiliated decks are also going to be in play. Next thing you need to do is you need to decide between the 2 Dark Lords for each one of the realms and decide exactly which one of the Dark Lords you want to encounter. The Dark Lord you want to encounter, you leave in the game, and the other Dark Lord you remove from the game, and that's going to show you exactly which one of the Dark Lords you're encountering for each one of the realms that you're trying to save. Afterwards, you're going to shuffle every one of these decks together. Now remember, you're only shuffling decks together for the realms that are actually involved in the game. So if we happen to be playing a 3-realm game and we decide that this realm is not going to be involved, we're not going to shuffle these realm cards into the deck. And if we're only playing a 2-realm game, for example, if we were only playing with these 2 realms right down here, we'd make sure to only shuffle this deck with this deck right here, and these 2 decks will be removed from the game along with their dark overlords. So now that we've figured out exactly which dark overlords we're going to be dealing with, they are placed off to the side of their respective realms. Now remember, you're not going to shuffle these guys in with their realm decks. They're placed off to the side so the heroes know exactly which dark overlords we're dealing with. After you've done that, you're going to take all the decks of cards that are affiliated with each one of these realms, and you're going to shuffle every single one of these decks of cards together. So if you're playing with all 4 realms, you're going to have a lot of cards that shuffle together, but they all need to be shuffled together to show exactly which kind of creatures are going to start invading these realms on every single turn, making your life much more difficult. After you have your realm deck put together, every single realm is going to get 2 treasures added to it and 1 artifact randomly of the 3 artifacts that happen to be affiliated with that specific realm. You're going to randomly pick one of those 3 artifacts and place it in the number 6 spot in every single realm. So number 6 spot here, number 6 spot down here, and finally the number 6 spot down here. Every one of these realms is going to get the single one of the 3 artifacts affiliated with that realm. And then every single realm in the number 1 and the number 2 spot is going to get a treasure. Again, it's going to be the treasure affiliated with that specific realm, and you're going to do that for every single realm that is currently in play. Afterwards, the players are going to simply shuffle up the shop deck, which is the cards you can purchase when you visit the towns. Every one of the invasion tracks are going to be placed off the board next to every single board, so you can start tracking the invasion. And then finally, every single one of these heroes is going to decide to pick one town that they want to decide that they're going to start in. And players can pick any one of the towns they want to start in. I suggest that you usually pick a town that happens to be better affiliated with the talents you have, especially by looking at the treasures that are currently on every one of these realm boards. So the Sugar Plum Fairy, who happens to start with 2 magic talents, might be great to start in the Feywood, but choosing Robin Hood to start over here may not be the best decision, because you notice he doesn't start with any courage or charm tokens in the game, and both these treasures require both to go ahead and capture them, and treasures are going to give you the money you need to start shopping at the stores to give you the extra powers that are going to help you defeat all these invaders and these dark overlords. After you're finished with the setup, you're ready to start playing the game, and every single round of 12 realms is broken down into 3 phases. You start off with the invasion phase, then you move to the action phase where every one of our heroes are going to get the chance to act, and finally you move to the refresh phase where all the talents are going to refresh, and that's going to end the round. You can move on to the next round, assuming our heroes have not won or lost. At the start of every single invasion phase, every realm needs to track the current level of the invasion for that one specific realm. And the way you're going to track that for every single one of these realms is you're going to count the total amount of invaders and the total amount of dark lords, if they happen to be in play, that are currently in every single realm. And you're going to add those up, and that's how many points the invasion marker is going to move for that one specific realm. So if this realm currently has 1 dark lord and 1 invader, at the start of the invasion phase, the invasion track is going to move up to 2. If this realm has 0 dark lords and 0 invaders, the track is not going to move. And if this one happens to have 5 or 6 inside it, the invasion track is going to move up 5 or 6 points, depending on exactly how many invaders happen to be in that specific realm. And remember, these invasion tracks are tracking the lose condition for the game. If one of these invasion tracks ever happens to get to 20, our heroes have instantly lost the game. Even if it's just one single realm, if any of them reach that, our heroes have lost. After you've adjusted all the invasion tracks for every single realm, you're going to look to see if there's any villains or invaders in play who have the curse power, the marauding power, or the summon power, and you're going to resolve those powers. Now the curse power is going to force every single one of our heroes to burn or exploit talents of their choice. Now the rules say randomly choose, but it actually means that you get to specifically choose which talents you're exploiting. And depending on how bad the curse is, it may force every one of our heroes to pick one of their talents that they need to exploit, or some of the very powerful invaders can even force you to exploit 2 talents that you have. And that's going to go for every single hero that happens to be in the same realm as that specific invader or dark overlord who's causing that curse. Invaders and monsters who have the marauding power are going to roll the die, and they're going to randomly move to that new location that they happen to roll if they have the marauding power. And then finally, creatures that have the summon power are going to start summoning extra allies of their kind onto the board, depending on the roll of the die in that specific realm. Now remember, every one of these invaders and creatures are affiliated with one specific board. So all the skeletons, the undead, and all the pirate-themed guys are always going to be affiliated with this board. All the fairy-style creatures are always going to be affiliated with this board. And their powers are going to affect their own specific realm. So if you happen to have a skeleton in this realm, and remember he can only come into play on this realm, and he happens to have the summon power, he's going to summon extra skeletons. He's going to summon those skeletons onto this specific realm, not onto any of the other realms on the board. After you're taking care of any powers for any of the bad guys or villains that may currently in play, you're going to draw a certain amount of realm cards depending on how many realms you have in the game. And now, even if a realm boss has been defeated, that realm is still in the game. So if we happen to defeat this villain and this realm has been saved, this realm is still in play and we still need to draw cards from this realm. And what we're going to do is we're going to draw 2 cards for every single realm in play plus 1. So in a 4-realm game, we need to draw 9 cards from the realm deck. And these are going to be creatures that are going to be added to the board, treasures that are going to be added to the board, and they're going to be added to their specific realm that they happen to be affiliated with. And that's going to be color-coded, and also it's going to match the symbols on every one of these cards. Now remember, you're going to draw as many cards as the amount of realms in the game times 2 plus 1. After you've drawn your cards, you're going to start placing tokens on the various realms based on the cards you've drawn and also based on the roll of the die. Now the very important thing to understand here is when you're drawing your realm cards, you need to make sure that there's a token for every one of the cards that you happen to draw. If there's not a token available, either because there's already too many of those tokens already on that specific realm, or if it happens to be because that realm that you drew the card for has already been saved by defeating the Dark Lord, you're going to ignore the card that you drew, you're going to discard it, and you're going to replace it. And if you happen to draw a card again that's not of use, you're going to keep drawing cards until you get a card that you either happen to have a token for, or you have to go through and reshuffle the entire deck all over just to keep drawing cards, to make sure that you're always getting a token for every single card that you draw. After you've gotten all the cards you need, you're going to specifically look at every single card in order, and you're just going to place them on their specific realm, again, based on the roll of die. So starting with the Corsair, who we know was affiliated with this realm right here, we're going to roll the die. We're going to get a 5, so we're going to place this token in the number 5 spot on this realm. We're going to go to this treasure right here, the silver figurine, which we know is affiliated with this realm right here. We're going to roll the die. And we're going to roll a 4, so we're going to add this token to the number 4 spot on this board. We're going to move over to the sprite. Again, we're going to roll for the location. We're going to get a 6. So the sprite is going to go over here to the number 6 location on this board. And we're going to continue doing this for all of these cards and all these tokens, remembering to respect special powers such as this creature right here, who has the horde power, which means that when he enters the board, he's going to enter with 3 tokens on whatever location I roll. So I rolled a 1, and since he has the horde power, that means that 3 of these guys are going to all go to that one specific location. Again, you're going to do that for every single realm card you drew. Now, you don't have to actually leave these cards out like I have here. You're free to actually put them in a discard pile, but I recommend when you're first learning how to play the game to actually leave these cards out as long as one of the tokens representing that card is still currently on one of the realm boards. Now, the reason why I recommend doing that is because you're going to notice that some of these cards are going to give you specific rewards, and sometimes you're going to forget about those rewards because while they're marked on the cards, they're not actually marked on the specific token that's actually affiliated with that card. For example, the sprite and the gnome, when you defeat these guys, it shows you that you're going to gain 1 gold coin. 1 gold coin. Again, these gold coins are used to shop at the market when you visit the city, but when you defeat one of these guys, you're going to gain 1 gold coin for defeating them. Well, if you happen to look at their little token that's affiliated with that card that you place on the board, you're going to notice it doesn't give you that reminder. So that's why I suggest when you're still learning the game to leave these cards out, or at least leave out the cards that give you special rewards when you defeat them, so you don't forget to take your treasure when you defeat these bad guys. Once you take care of all the realm cards that you drew for this turn, the invasion phase is over, and it's now for the player action phase. And during the player action phase, each player is going to take all the actions they want, as long as they have the talents to cover those actions, and they can complete as many actions as they want as they're able to before they end their turn, and then you're going to continue to the next hero in clockwise order. So just to make sure I emphasize, you're not going to take one action and pass the next player in line. You're going to take as many actions as you want, as you have available for this entire round. Then you're going to end your turn for the entire round, and then the next player in clockwise order gets to do the exact same thing. Once all the players have gone through all of their actions, you're done with the player phase and you're going to move on to the reset phase. Now each player during the player action phase has a couple different options available to them. The first action a player has available to them on their turn is they can go ahead, if they're currently in one of the realms and they want to stay in that realm, they can move to any adjacent area in the current realm they currently occupy. So for example, the Nutcracker, if he happens to be in the city and he wants to move one area over in the current realm he happens to be in, all he has to do is exploit one movement token by removing two of his available talents, putting it off to the side to show that he has used up that one talent, and move to the adjacent area that he's chosen. And if he wants to move again, he can just simply spend one more talent, move to the next area he wants to move to, and he's done there. And you can do this in any order you like. You can move to one area, interact with the area by spending your talents, and then spend another movement token to move to an adjacent area, where you can potentially interact with another thing, whether it's a villain to defeat by exploiting the talents that matches their vulnerabilities, or if you happen to be in a location with a treasure, you can simply exploit the talents you need that matches that treasure to claim that treasure, which is going to give you money that you can use to spend in the cities, or if you happen to be at a location that has an artifact, and as long as you have the right talent to exploit, you can claim that artifact. And remember, to defeat these dark overlords, the hero who's confronting that dark overlord needs all three artifacts matching that dark overlord before they can defeat that dark overlord. Heroes who happen to occupy the same space in a specific realm are also free to share any gold they may have, and they're also free to share artifacts, which could be a good benefit, especially if you have a hero who you feel may be much more able to handle the vulnerabilities of that dark lord, and they're more equipped because they have more talents that are more matching the vulnerabilities of that specific dark lord. So you're free to exchange artifacts and you're free to exchange gold, but those are the only two things you can share between two heroes which happen to share the same space in a realm. Players on their turn are also free to visit the city, and all they have to do is be in the space with the city. If they're in the space with the city, they can exploit one swiftness token, and there's a reminder on every one of the cities in case you forget. It says exploit one swiftness token, which means you're basically going from the area into the city itself, and then you're going to draw the top two cards of the current city deck, and you're going to choose one of those two cards to purchase if you like for the cost listed in the upper right hand corner of every one of these cards. Now every one of these city cards is either going to cost you 1 gold or 2 gold, and now you're free to either spend the gold that you gain from defeating enemies and gold you gain from other different things across the board, or you're also free to exploit your talents, which can also be used for gold. The nice thing is that this is gold that recycles. So the Sugar Plum Fairy happens to have 1 gold coin, and she happens to have her gold talent, and she happens to be inside a city right now, and if she happened to draw these 2 cards, she could exploit her 1 gold talent and spend this 1 gold right here to pick one of these 2 cards to go ahead and keep, add to her player board, and then she's going to permanently gain the special abilities that she gained from adding that card to her board, and it's going to give her the special talents immediately to add to her unspent talents that she can use to further her turn. Now, you're not forced to buy any of the cards of the 2 you choose, and matter of fact, you're only allowed to buy one of the 2 cards that you've drawn from the top of the deck. Whichever cards you don't purchase is going to be put in the discard pile, and again, you're either free to buy one or neither of the cards, but you cannot buy both. But you are free to visit the city a second time, especially if you happen to have lots of money and you have lots of movement tokens to go back in and revisit the city, draw 2 more cards again, and if you happen to like what you see, you can spend the money, get what that card gives you, and discard the card that you did not select. These shop cards are going to give you various special abilities as soon as you buy them, such as the Magic Potion Dealer, which says that for every single gold coin you purchase at the Magic Potion Dealer, he's going to allow you to buy one of these blue talents that you can add permanently to your board simply by spending 1 gold. And remember, these blue talents are one-time use. Once you burn them, they're gone, or once you exploit them, they're gone. But you can buy multiple magic potions from him. They're going to give you extra special abilities that you can use on later rounds to kind of defeat or get rid of the vulnerabilities of everything you're going to encounter in the game. Some of these shop items, such as the Philosopher's Stone, aren't going to give you a choice what they're going to give you. They're going to give you a specific item. you're going to add that to your board, and you're simply going to discard the card, and these cards are going to go away. But other of these cards are going to give you special abilities, that are going to give you permanent abilities, permanent talents that you're going to add to your card, and they're also going to have what's called an Aegis effect. To tell if a card has an Aegis effect on it, you just need to look on the lower left-hand corner and see if there's a flame. Now, if the card has a flame or an Aegis effect on it, you know that this card can be burned or destroyed for its one-time use power, and you're going to get the power of whatever that Aegis effect is, and they're different for all the cards. For example, the horse card says that you can destroy this horse to recharge any 2 talents that you've already used this turn, and then this card is going to be destroyed, removed from your board, and put back in the discard pile. Now, the thing you have to be careful about when you do that, though, is any talents this card gave you when you purchased it are also going to be taken away with that card. So, for example, if we decided to go ahead and burn our Pegasus for its ability, which is going to allow 1 hero to travel from their current location to any other realm on any one or any of the areas in any of the other realms of the board, that's what the Aegis power is for the Pegasus. But as soon as we do that, the magic the Pegasus has given us and also the extra swiftness the Pegasus gave us is going to disappear with that card. Now, it does go back in the discard pile. It's not removed from the game permanently, but you do have to wait for the card to come back up in the draw deck in a future rounds by players shopping in the cities. The final thing that one of our heroes can do is if they're currently inside one of the cities, already inside one of the cities, and they decide to spend one of their swiftness tokens to actually move into the city itself, they can go from that city to any other city in any other realms that are currently in the game. The only negative about doing this, though, is that as soon as you do this, no matter how many talents you have left that are still unspent, all your talents are used up for the rest of the turn. You have basically spent your entire turn traveling from this one city to this next city in your turn. So if you ever want to travel between realms, make sure you do as much as you can in your current realm before you go to the next realm, because that does end your turn. Once a player has used up all their talent tokens, or if they decide they don't want to spend any more talent tokens on their turn is over, and you're going to move over to the next player. And again, all these players are going to do this in clockwise order, and that's going to end the action phase. After that, you're going to move to the reset phase, where all the players are going to refresh all their talents and all their boards, so they'll be used on the next round. There's just one more thing to understand about 12 realms, and that's the Dark Lords themselves. Now, the Dark Lords don't start in the realms themselves. Remember at the beginning, I told you at the beginning of every single round, the invasion track is going to raise based on however many invaders are currently in the current realm. For each one of these realms, you're going to track the individual invasion tracks separately. Well, as soon as this invasion track gets to the red section of every one of these invasion tracks, whether it lands on 16, 17, 18, or 19, once the invasion track gets into the red, that specific invader is going to enjoy making your life more difficult by joining the invasion. Now, the Dark Lord is going to come onto the board in a random location, which means you're simply going to roll the die, and he's going to arrive in whatever location you decide to roll. So if you roll 1, he's going to appear in section 1, and now you can confront this invader, or this Dark Lord. The difficulty here is you can only confront the Dark Lord if you happen to have recovered all 3 of the artifacts, and only the hero who has all 3 of those artifacts can confront that specific Dark Lord themselves. And now you have to defeat this Dark Lord before the invasion track reaches level 20. And the additional difficulty is that the Dark Lord also counts as an invader when it comes to the invasion track. Now, he's not an invader when it comes to special cards that allow you to defeat invaders instantly. But when it comes to the invasion track, he does count, which means that every single round he's alive, he's going to increase the invasion track by at least 1, plus however many it's going to go up by extra invaders currently out on the board. So if you don't have your artifacts, you're quickly going to lose the game. It's not all doom and gloom, though, because other heroes can help you defeat Dark Lords, and other heroes can also help you defeat regular invaders. And the way this is going to work is if you happen to be the active player, that does mean you can take all your active activations, and any other heroes that happen to be in the same location as you can assist you with exploiting vulnerabilities. So if the Nutcracker happened to be the active hero in the realm, and it's their turn right now, and Robin Hood also happened to be in this realm, and the Nutcracker happened to have all 3 artifacts and wanted to try to confront this Dark Overlord, they could do it by exploiting whatever talents they need, and then Robin Hood can also exploit any talents they may have to help defeat this Dark Overlord. The only thing you have to be careful of is if this Dark Overlord has any special powers, they're only going to affect the active character, not any heroes that are assisting, and any negatives that occur after the fight, again, are only going to affect the active hero, not the heroes who assisted. So the Nutcracker, as the active hero, could exploit his combat prowess and his knowledge of magic, while Robin Hood, as the inactive hero who happens to be in the same area, can exploit his knowledge and his mighty crown, which can be used as a wild card to cover the courage needed to defeat this Dark Lord. And once a Dark Lord has been defeated, the invasion marker stops advancing. All invaders that are currently on that land, and that land only, that entire board, that region, are also defeated with the Dark Lord, and they're removed from the board. And any cards you happen to draw that is affiliated with that realm, if you draw them out of this deck, is completely ignored, and you're going to replace that card by drawing an additional card, but you're still going to draw the amount of cards at the start of every single invasion round based on the amount of boards. So we're still going to be drawing 9 cards, but any cards that are invaders affiliated with this specific realm are going to be completely ignored and discarded, and we're just going to draw an additional card instead of it until you get cards that don't match that realm, and you're going to draw the total amount of cards it takes until you got your cards. You're going to continue with your invaders until you manage to defeat all the Dark Lords in all the realms. If our heroes can manage to defeat every single one of the Dark Lords affiliated with every single one of the realms, they win the game. If any of these invasion tracks happen to hit 20 before all the Dark Lords are defeated, our heroes have lost. The important point to emphasize here is that the heroes are in charge of the invasion and the rate that the invasion track does go up. If our heroes are being overly efficient and making sure to slaughter the invaders as they spawn, and they're killing them faster than they can spawn, I can guarantee the Dark Lord will never spawn. So the heroes do have to be careful to make sure they're not killing too quickly, but they also need to make sure that they're not killing too slowly. They need to make sure they're controlling the pace so the Dark Overlord spawns when they're ready for them, when they're completely equipped, and when they feel they can most easily defeat the Dark Lords. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial for the basic game for 12 realms. I'm going to shoot a second video where I'm going to show you all the advanced rules and all the difficulties and challenges they add to the basic game of 12 realms.